Welcome to week 2 of our openSAP course on how to drive S/4HANA transformations using SAP Signavio solutions. My name is Caroline Pitrola, and I will be your host for the topic of this week, Business Process Management Fundamentals. Before we get started with this first unit, I would like to introduce you to the co-creators of this content, talk about what to expect and what not to expect from week 2, and about the main learning objectives. Alex Truskait, Amir Bolboli, and myself, we like to call ourselves BPM evangelists at SAP. We have different backgrounds, but there's one thing we have in common: the passion for business process management. I would like to thank Alex and Amir for supporting me in creating this course and beyond. Now let's talk about this week. What is it that you can expect from it? Well, I can tell you what it won't be. This week is not about innovative solutions or breakthrough technology. Will it still be worth your while and interesting? I sure hope so. Because what I want to talk to you about is what business process management really is, why I believe every company of any size should take the time and effort to do it, and what the great benefits of BPM are. So in less than 2 hours of your time, I will break down this extensive topic and give you a jump start into BPM. What are my main objectives for this week? Well, I hope that at the end of this week, you can say that you have a pretty decent understanding of what BPM is, what the advantages of BPM are, and how a transformation can be the kickoff to your journey to continuous process improvement. As you can tell, I'm already getting excited, but here's one last slide before we kick it off. This overview serves as an orientation for this openSAP course. You have seen the slide before because it's the same one that Stefano and Michael have shared in their sessions last week. Just that now, our focus is on week 2, Business Process Management Fundamentals. The right side of this overview shows an overview of our topics. In this very first session, we will talk about BPM fundamentals, why BPM and why in this course, the advantages of BPM, and I will cover a few important definitions. With session 2, we will dive into the first phase of the BPM lifecycle, process identification. Session 3 will be about what we call process discovery. Session 4 will cover the process analysis, and in session 5, we will talk about how to redesign processes. Session 6 will be about the commonly neglected, yet super important topic, process implementation and change management. And finally, we will look at process monitoring and controlling. Having said that, I'm excited to dive into our first real topic, why BPM in this course. Now I can tell you are here because you want to learn all about SAP Signavio solutions and how they can help you drive your transformation project faster, better, and cheaper. And I can promise you, week 3 to 5 are going to be full of that. My colleagues will show you how you can bring light and transparency into huge transformation projects and how you can increase business value through that change. However, if we truly want to leverage the potential of such a business transformation, we need to take a look at our processes and improve how we do things today and how we should do things tomorrow. That is what really yields the maximum business value. Because if all we do is take a shitty process and run it in a new and fancy system, what are we going to get? Yet a shitty process in a new and fancy system. So what I want to talk to you about in week 2 is how to do proactive business process management to continuously improve processes. In fact, I like to compare transformations to diets. Losing weight might be the right thing to do, but if we don't change our eating behavior sustainably, what's going to happen? We will put all that weight on again. Business process management is that change in eating habits. It will help us to keep us in shape sustainably. Almost all companies find themselves in the same position when faced with a technical transformation. They have lost the overview of how things are done, whom they are done by, which systems are in use, and which data is really important. Let's clean up that mess. Let's go on a diet, and I can assure you SAP Signavio can be our Weight Watcher coach to support us during that diet and to lose weight faster. However, business process management supported by SAP Signavio will be our change in eating habits, and done right will be the key to long-term process excellence. Now, before I talk about all the advantages of BPM, I want to give you something to think about. What are a company's greatest assets? Employees and their know-how, physical things like buildings and machines, IT, just to name a few. Has anyone ever considered not managing people in a company? Not managing building or machines? Not managing IT? Of course not. Companies want to get the best out of their employees. They want to make sure to maintain buildings and machines. And they sure have CIOs and IT organizations in place to make sure systems and software is running smoothly. Now let me ask you, how can companies not care about their processes? How can they not care about increasing productivity and efficiency? How can they not care about increasing customer satisfaction by implementing customer-friendly processes? How could companies not care about managing compliance? Well, they do, because they have to. And I can tell you what happens. Just for audit purposes, employees are forced to describe what they're doing in a process model once a year right before the auditor shows up. After the audit is over, the process remains untouched for the rest of the year. Well, that is not process management. It's drawing a picture of a process for the auditor. But how can we not care about increasing standardization and ensuring scalability to reduce errors and improve quality? True business process management enables agility by providing a framework for organizations to quickly adapt to changing business needs and respond to new opportunities or threats. It sets the foundation for any kind of unforeseen or foreseen transformation. Now, for the sake of completeness and to give you some food for your final exam questions, I have brought some academic definitions with me. Just so you've heard about it before, I would like to introduce you to the most commonly accepted definitions of a business process. I copied it from a book that I like to call the Bible of BPM, called Fundamentals of Business Process Management, written by 4 BPM experts who have published many books on the topic of process management. Well, the authors define a business process as events, activities, and decisions involving multiple actors and resources that collectively lead to an outcome that is of value to an organization or its customers. Now, what does that mean? A process is usually triggered by one or multiple start events or conditions that causes the process to start. Activities are carried out by defined roles and require certain inputs and lead to predefined outputs. All this leads to a predefined outcome, which needs to be adding value to the organization or the customer. Now that we know what a process is, let's take a look at how Dumas and colleagues, the authors of the book, define process management. According to them, BPM is the art and science of overseeing how work is performed in an organization to ensure consistent outcomes and take advantage of improvement opportunities. Or, as Gartner likes to put it, BPM brings attention to the highest value processes, the ones that are most aligned with the business goals and strategy for the best return on investment. To me, BPM is all of the above, but most importantly, it creates one language everyone in an organization understands: pictures. So far, so good. I hope I haven't lost your attention by now with lame definitions, because the concept that I'm about to explain now is what I like to call the essence of business process management, the BPM life cycle. And as the cycle indicates, BPM has no beginning and no end. BPM is a continuous endeavor to improve how we do things constantly. In my perfect world, this is done proactively. In reality, it is mostly triggered by external factors. But we will get to that later. For now, let's focus on what the BPM lifecycle is. As you can see, the first phase of process identification is outside the circle. Why is this? Because it's the non-repetitive, or should I say the least repetitive part of business process management. And it could be two things. Process identification could be the overall definition of what an organization's processes actually are and how they are connected to each other. Basically, designing the process architecture of an organization. The other thing it could be is when managing one specific process or a project, the identification of exactly that one or multiple processes that needs to be considered for the project. So to say, the scoping activity. Phase 2 is called process discovery and simply consists of gathering all the available information about a process and creating process models of it if necessary. By the way, process modeling is often confused with business process management, but it really is just a very small part of it. But we will talk about process modeling later. So let's focus on our next phase in the BPM lifecycle, which is called process analysis. It is the phase in which we take a step back and try to identify imperfections in the process and assess their impact on our operations. Based on the assessment of the process weaknesses, process redesign should be the next phase. This is most likely the most creative phase, where out-of-the-box thinking and involvement of different stakeholders can be crucial to success. Once a 2B process is designed and agreed upon, the next phase, process implementation, can be done. Besides well-planned technical implementation, a well-prepared change management campaign is the most important and unfortunately most underestimated element of this phase. Last but not least, we want to monitor and control the processes for two reasons. First of all, we want to ensure that our implemented process changes actually have the positive effect on our operations as anticipated. And secondly, we want to detect potentially upcoming process weaknesses or bottlenecks as early as possible to tackle them with corrective measures. Done? Nope, not done. Keep in mind, process management is a journey, not a project. BPM is much more about people than simply about reaching numbers. It creates a language everyone understands and doesn't separate the smart and the not so smart people. And by doing so, it integrates all stakeholders and should not exclude certain employees. And finally, always keep in mind the BPM approach needs to fit into the organizational context and must be adapted constantly. This slide on a high level summarizes what BPM is all about. Talking about adapting concepts to business needs of an organization, I would like to remind you of the concept that Michael has introduced in week 1. It is the SAP Signavio end-to-end business process transformation methodology, which has been derived of SAP's need to transform processes and systems. It aims to combine the life cycles of a process and systems while keeping the people in the center. It is a great approach for transformations, but remember, this week is not about diets. It's about changing your eating habits sustainably. And to be successful in changing our habits and implementing a process DNA, here's my summary of critical success factors for BPM. I know I'm repeating myself, but I can't stress enough that to be successful, BPM must be set up as an integral part of an organization and must be seen as a long-term journey. Automation and digitalization can be helpful improvement measures, but keep your focus on process improvement in a broader sense and not only on automation. Management attention is key to success, as in many areas. Prioritize. It's easy getting lost in details, but keep your focus on the topics of impact. And last but not least, stay pragmatic. At the end of some chapters, I will give you brief insights into how BPM is done at SAP itself. They are taken out of the BPM Golden Standard presentation, which summarizes BPM guidelines at SAP. Let's wrap up this session summarizing the key takeaways of Unit 1. We started the unit talking about how we can leverage transformation projects as a jumpstart into BPM as a continuous process improvement. We then talked about some of the advantages of BPM and why any company of any size, regardless of its industry, should invest in BPM. I then gave you some basic definitions on BPM and introduced you to the BPM lifecycle, the essence of BPM. We wrapped up the session talking about some critical success factors and some insights into BPM at SAP. Thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to our next session on process identification. See you soon.